Hello and welcome to the 3Crosses Woodcarving video podcast. This is our second podcast and I need you to bear with me. I've never done this before, so I'm going to be learning as I go along. But what I decided to do this week, I've already talked some about the fact that I want to do some interviews with carvers. So tonight I am going to do an interview with a carver, and I just thought that I might just start out with myself. So it's going to be a little funny, and I hope you'll enjoy it, but I'm going to interview myself. Now, I've come up with a list of questions that I want to use when I interview carvers. And along that line, I've got a show coming up next month, the first weekend in November in Huntsville, and I'm going to try to do a few interviews with some of the carvers there, and I'll be putting this up. By the way, I'm going to try to keep these podcasts to about 10 minutes. And if they run much longer than that, I'll have to bust them up into maybe part 1, part 2, whatever, but we'll work that out. So you just sit down, relax, and let me try to do this interview with myself. So here I'm going to start out. I'm going to tell you who I am. I'm GaryMc. I live in Decatur, Alabama. I'm originally from Hot Springs, Arkansas, so I'm a transplanted hillbilly living in North Alabama. And I like it here. It's pretty nice. The first question I would like to ask myself is how long have I been carving, and how did I get started carving? Well, I got started carving in Hot Springs probably sometime in the mid-'80s, say. And I had one friend I met there who was a carver. He sold me my first set of tools, which, by the way, was just a standard Rammelson set, and I'm still using those same tools today. They're some of my favorite tools. He showed me a few things and even started me out carving faces. One of these nights I'll get out some of the first faces I carved so y'all can have a good laugh, but it'll also, for you new beginners, it'll give you a little hope, because they were pretty pitiful. And I do a little bit better now. At least I hope y'all think so. I do. So that's how I got started, but I carved for a couple of years and did just a little bit of everything like everybody does, and then I kind of lost interest in it a while. In 1993, I moved down here and I met another carver, and he kind of got me back going again. And I carved off and on for the next couple of years, joined the club in Huntsville over there, but I really didn't get serious about my carving until about 5 years ago, and I decided I wanted to learn how to carve a face. But I found out very quickly that it was difficult to learn how to carve a really good face by yourself. And but I finally got a little help. I'll discuss that a little further in a minute. Okay, Gary, now the next question I want to ask you is who has been an influence on you in your carving? Well, my biggest influence is probably in what I'm doing now, which, I carve a lot of faces. Has been Jeff Ferris, who carves, as far as I'm concerned, the best Indians around, and also a man named Jim Wright. Now, Jim Wright carved a lot of wood spirits and a lot of other different things. He was a wonderful carver. I got to go to a seminar with him probably a year before he passed away, and I missed the guy. He was an excellent teacher. So those two guys were probably my main influences. Well, all right, Gary, well, tell us a little bit about your carving space, where you carve and how you do it. Well, it depends. If I'm carving these Santa Claus ornaments, these small carvings, a lot of times I sit right in my easy chair, and that's where I carve. I've made me a little lap board I use, and I've got a big apron that actually covers the arms of my recliner, and I just sit there and carve away, and it's easy to clean up my mess. Now, if I'm going to carve something bigger, especially a piece of hard driftwood or something a little bit bigger, I have a carving fixture, and it's attached. Well, right now it's actually attached to a Black & Decker Workmate, but I also attach it to a roll-top desk I have, and that's where I do the balance of that kind of carving. And for bigger things, well, I hadn't really got around to bigger things yet, but I will. Okay, how about talking about the tools that you use and maybe some of your techniques? Okay, well, the tools I use, I've got a mismatch set. I've got everything from Rammelsons and miniature Rammelson miniature tools all the way up to a pretty good set of mallet tools also. And here again, it depends on what I'm carving. If I'm carving small faces, well, naturally I'll be using small tools. And I've got Ramelsons, I've got Flex Cut, I've got some 3 Cherries, I've got some Henry Taylor, I've got some Swiss made tools, file tools. I've got a little bit of everything. And for you beginners out there, I mean, the first set you buy, maybe a simple Ramelson or something like that, those are really good. But after that, depending on the style of carving you want to do, I would recommend you buy them in singles. Get around some other carvers, use their tools, see what kind you like, and then buy them one at a time. It's cheaper that way in the long run, and it keeps you from having a whole lot of tools that you probably won't ever use. Okay. Techniques, well, technique is highly dependent on what you're carving. Now, I carve a lot of faces, so the techniques I use there, if you watch one of my videos, you'll see what they are. You have to learn how to see a face and what a face really looks like. You need to be able to see the angles in the face and the different contours and things like that. The angle of the nose, angle of the brow, how the cheeks work out. If you're carving mustache, how hair lays, things like that. So it is highly dependent on what you're wanting to carve. Now,